Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave. It's Jem here and welcome back to another Tuesday video. I have marked this as a chatorial video rather than a colouring chat because I'm doing a very specific thing today and it's something that I get asked about quite a lot, so that's kind of how I've sort of come to this conclusion. So we're back in Dromenvanger by Tomislav Tomic and back to our mushroom page that we were looking at. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create this background. Now I did it on the opposite page. This was kind of like my guinea pig page. So I wanted to try some colours out and just sort of have a go with pencils and see how I was going to get on. So this is what we're aiming for because we want this side obviously to be a match on the other side as well. And believe it or not, you probably will believe it because it's not a difficult background, but I'm only using 3 pencils. That's all. That is all we need. We don't need things to be complicated. So the pencils we're using today, we're back in the Arteza set and it's the 120 set I've got, which is the biggest set. So the colours that we're going to be using today are Pear, which is A100. I also have Moss, which is A029. And I have Olive Green, which is A155. Now that's pretty worn. I don't know if you'll be able to see that at all, but that is Olive Green. That's one thing I have noticed about the Arteza pencils is the writing seems to wear off quite quickly. This is the first time I've used the Olive Green for any length of time and the writing is pretty worn off. Alright then, so here we are on the page that we're working on and it's actually quite nice to see this opposite page done. It kind of made me weirdly happy because I'm strange like that. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to take this moss pencil and we're going to get one layer of moss on the entire background. So I'm just going to make a start. I'll zoom in a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing because that's always nice. And I'm going to start down in this corner. So I'm just doing the same thing that I always do, is just getting that first layer down to map out the colour. Not too bothered about how smooth the colour is because it's just a first layer and we're going to be working over the top of it. So we just want to keep a light hand, and as you can see I'm holding the pencil quite far back from the tip, and that's a really good way to force your hand to not press down. It's a really good trick and I use it when I'm drawing as well. So we've got quite a few itty bitty bits to work around here and that is what's going to take the time with this. The key when you're doing backgrounds though is just to be patient. I found to begin with when I'd started to colour that my patience wasn't nearly as good as it is now, and as I went along and grew more impatient I started to rush and inadvertently started to press harder and then ended up really frustrated that my backgrounds weren't all that great. So that's something that has definitely come over time for me and I've got better at it and I've grown more patient with it as the years have passed. So I talk about tickling the paper a lot. That is perfectly descriptive of what we're trying to achieve here. Just give it a tickle. Now if we can get this background done today, that is going to bring this picture on significantly. And then we can get into some of the more interesting aspects of the drawing. So not a lot of exciting stuff happening here in the cave. I have been trying desperately to find a little bit of time to myself to draw because I really just want to sit with my sketch pad, but I haven't found that time yet. I'm ever hopeful. Okay, I'm just going to sort of take my time here and figure out what belongs to what. Because I think this might just be background. There's so many sort of leaves and sprouty bits and things popping up here. I think that's about right. Sophie did mention in the last video that we did on this that I'd missed a bit behind the steps. I've looked at it a couple of times now and I'm trying to decide whether any of that is related to this part here. I don't think it is because this seems to curve in at an angle, but it just seems to disappear very, very quickly. I think maybe we'll make that the colour of the ground, but I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to mull it over for a little while and just I'll go back to it at a later stage. And see, that could be anything in there, but I'm going to make it the background because there's lots going on here. I'm not even sure that there isn't things going on in the background here. Like there's this part here that looks, see that petal looks as if it should go in there. Okay, we'll say that that's petal. See, this is something I've talked about this quite a lot, but I do struggle with this sometimes. I just can't seem to sort it out in my mind's eye. So let's come up here now. We've got this little patch up here to do. Yeah, I'm coming very close to the end of my sketchbook, and because there's only a few pages left in it, I kind of want to like use it up and finish it off and get started on another sketchbook. So, but I think I need the relaxation time as well. I've been in the evenings the last week or so, I've been working and mostly editing videos, so I've not really had a huge amount of time to just do things for the sake of doing things. I did bunk off work the other day because it was very warm and the sun was out, and I thought to myself, I am not missing this opportunity because it doesn't happen very often in Scotland. So rather than work, I sat outside in my very unkempt garden with some sunglasses on and drank some beer, and it was lovely. So because of that though, I have had to do my work at other times, so, but that's okay. That's one of the joys of being self-employed. If you can't do it when you're self-employed, when can you? Oh, also as well, while I remember, I had a very specific request from one of you. So Kate, this is for you. Here are a couple of pictures of my dogs because you said that would cheer you up. So this is Pip, and this is Jock, who is our middle dog, and this is Woo, who is our geriatric Jack Russell. There you are, Kate, I hope you like that. By the time you see this video, Woo will have been for an operation. She has a growth, well, she's at that age where she's pretty lumpy and bumpy. Older dogs develop these sort of fatty cysts and eventually sometimes they turn cancerous. But for about 6 years, Woo has had a growth on her belly, and it's hard, and it's like rock hard. It's like a cartilage almost. And we were always told by the vets that as long as it wasn't bothering her, that we should just leave it be. But it's come to the stage now where it's starting to almost like poke through her skin, and she's starting to scratch at it. So we decided it was time to phone the vet and talk to them, and the vet agreed, even under the current climate, that it would be a good idea to get her in and get it removed. I shall update you in due course, but at this moment in time she's due to go in. Obviously I'm filming this a few days before, so I will update you in due course on the community tab as to how she's doing, because she's pretty old now. She's 15. She's a bit deaf, doesn't see very well. But she's still, apart from that, she has no major underlying health issues. You know, she's got no heart problems or anything like that. She gets a joint supplement because she's a bit stiff. And that's about it really, so she's doing okay. But she still runs about with the big dogs, chases a tennis ball when we go OUT for a WALK. Can't say the words because they're all in the room. You know, so she's still quite active and so on and so forth. But her faculties are beginning to fail slightly. But say at 15, you know, you can't expect much more from her, to be honest. But she's still a happy little dog. She's still got an appetite. She's still, we call it getting her giddy knickers on. Every now and then she just gets up, because she spends most of her day in her bed sleeping or just scrounging for food. And every now and then she gets up and disappears, and she comes back with a tennis ball, and she's wanting you to roll the ball for her across the floor. And I thought, you know, she's still got that sort of playful streak in her, which is really nice for an old dog like that. But I'm convinced that half the time she can't see the ball anyway. But as long as it makes her happy, I'm quite happy to keep playing with her. When you're doing this, it is better that you don't have a sharp point on your pencil, because it will give you a much softer coverage. You know, you won't see sort of scratchy lines as much. As I say, it's not really a huge deal because we're going to be going over it anyway, but just as a sort of general tip. That's one of those things. See if you do mistake an area and you know you get it wrong, or you realise it's part of something else. In a busy picture like this, it's not really a huge deal. It's such an insignificant part of the picture, it's not really going to cause you any problems. Now that we've got that layer down, we want to start working on the bottom section. So this is supposed to be like grasses. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick with our moss pencil first. And I always like to turn my book slightly to do this because I find it easier to go across the way rather than up and down the way. But I'm just going to start putting in sort of these flicky lines, and I'm not pressing particularly hard. A slightly firmer pressure than I used previously, so we're not tickling anymore. We are pushing the pencil onto the paper. but not in any great fashion, because what we want is we want the background flicks to be nice and soft so that the grass looks as if it's a bit further away in the distance. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sharpen our pencil up and put some more defined strokes on top of that. So what we're doing here is we're building up the background colour, but we're adding texture as we do it. Now I'm just going to kind of follow the line from the page beside it, so that's it, like a good sort of gauge as to how flicky it's supposed to be. And down at the bottom here you might get a tiny bit of white. That's okay, and you can just scumble that in, so just little circular motions, again with the same pressure, just to sort of fill in the white. So once you've got it, doesn't have to be completely covered, you can see I do have paler parts there and that's all part of it. But that's what you're kind of looking at achieving. So now what we want to do is switch to the olive green, and the same, I don't have a very pointy point on the pencil, it is a little bit sharper, and I'm going to do the same thing. So the same sort of pressure. And I'm just going to pop in a few of those, and I'm going to keep doing this until I've reached the sort of desired depth of colour. So I'm going to get it to match up with here. But obviously the less strokes you have on your paper, the lighter the colour is going to look. And I'm just going in along the edge of that leaf there, because I don't want a white line around my leaf either. And I'm pretty happy with that. So as I'm working across here, I'm just doing it section by section. Because of the foreground, it naturally breaks the background up for us, so it makes it easier to work in these sections. So now I'm using my pear pencil and little circular motions, light pressure again. I'm going to blend this in with what we've just done. So I'm going maybe not even a third of the way down into our flicks. And I'm just starting to fill in and build up this colour a little bit at a time. This is a really good, this is a natural stopping point because this frond comes quite far over. So I'm just going to build up some layers now, and I'm not changing the pressure at all. This pencil reminds me of chartreuse in the Prismacolor set. It's a similar sort of colour. It's that slightly offensive green yellow, but not that offensive. Okay, so now I want to take my olive green pencil again, and I'm going to start to put in some heavier flicks. So I'm pressing down quite hard at the bottom and then flicking up quickly. You want a very, very quick motion. And again, if you want to fill in a little bit at the bottom here, then that's okay, you can do that. Now it's up to you how far you want to take it. I tend to find less is more. I am a less is more person, and that looks as if it's matching up quite well with what's going on over here. So that's how easy and simple that is. And you can take it, if you want really deep saturated colour, obviously you can go to town with that if that's your desire. Now in these little itty bits, it's going to be really difficult to get that texture in. So what I'm going to do there is I'm back to my moss pencil, and I'm just going to put another layer of colour down on top. Just flat colour in these spaces. And literally just assess each little section, you know, like one at a time, and decide whether or not I'll be able to fit in some of the flicks to give the texture of the grass. The much smaller spaces I probably won't bother. I might just pop down a wee bit of the olive on top just to sort of colour match it a wee bit. But if we do this with the moss first, and then back to my olive. So down here I can flick in here. See, not too fussy about it. It's more the eye's going to be drawn to it if the colour doesn't match, and that's what's going to make it look a bit odd and out of place, rather than the texture of it. So you can see there, I mean, that looks fine, that looks okay. So I'll do the same with these sections here. Now doing a flicky motion in tight spaces like this is a really good test of your pencil control. And that's something again that you just get better with practice. So again, such a small area, don't stress over it, just chuck it in. Now in here we're kind of into this sort of zone of where the pear is, so again, not going to worry too much about it, just going to build up the colour, make sure I'm getting in all the wee fiddly bits, as we're fond of saying. It was actually somebody pointed out to me, it was an American person, said that a universally common phrase for people in the UK, not just Scottish people, is fiddly bits. The English, the Irish and the Welsh and the Scottish all talk about fiddly bits, so I thought that was quite an interesting point. Now I think this might be background in here because there's a gap there, so I'm going to go for it and I'm going to make that Going to be brave. I'm still not convinced. I don't know what's going on here. I have no idea what's going on here. I'm quite happy that that little section's done now. So if we move up here, I'm going to take my pear to about here. Again, just as I did before, so I'm trying to even out the colour and intensify it a little bit, but do it in layers. You don't want to be pressing down really hard. Again, my hand's really far back up the pencil. Some people do struggle, but when you get into tighter spaces, you do have to bring your hand back down. That's because you need the control over it. So that's really when you need to be aware of your pressure. Make sure you're not mashing it into the paper, which is much more common than you would think with colourists. And even when they do get more experienced, I know a lot of people that still have to check themselves, you know, because they progressively put more pressure on without realising it. Okay, so up the top here I am back to my moss pencil, and we're pretty much doing the same as we did at the bottom along the top without the olive pencil. Now my reasoning behind that, if I just zoom out a wee bit here and let you look at the bigger picture, my thinking is that if there is a light source, this image is going to be quite low to the ground because we're talking about mushrooms, so the light is probably going to be a bit higher up. So even if there is vegetation, you know, around the outside of this, it's going to see more light than the bits that are down touching the ground. So that's why I'm just sticking with the moss, which is the lighter green pencil. So that's kind of like the logic behind it. So the same thing here, just as we did at the bottom, and I just want to put a layer of the moss down, but I am using an up and down motion, and that's again to help us with the texture, because we want a little bit of texture just to make it interesting. And then after we've done that, we can sharpen the pencil up a little bit. That'll start to give us more lines. So I was thinking this might even look like almost like vines hanging down or something. There we go. So you can see now that we've got a bit of the white of the paper showing through. So what we want to do is tip our pencil on its side, and we're just going to go over the top of that and make the paper less white, for want of a better phrase. That is not very technical at all, but I have never professed to being a technically precise person when it comes to art and colouring. I just do what I do and give things funny names and everything's a-okay. And again, if you want to take a wee bit of time just to sort of fill in around the edges, because we've got quite a lot of objects to manoeuvre around in terms of this top part of the page. So if you want to put a little bit more. Now you will find that your flicky lines do start to sort of disappear a little bit, but that's okay, because once we've done this, we're going to go back over them again and put in a few more. Again, just like anything else you're colouring, just think about it as layers. You know, this isn't the final cut, as it were, and you have to go through that process. And obviously you're going to see changes in what you've done as you go along, because that's how we develop and build up our pictures, and more importantly build up our colour. Okay, so we want to do the same again, and if you want to press a little bit harder this time, then by all means. Now granted, I will say when you're doing things like this, it is a lot easier with, oh my goodness, that was a wayward flick. When you're doing this, it is a lot easier if you've got a harder pencil, because the softer pencil, your tip wears down really quickly on it, and you will go through a lot more pencil. I also find as well, by twisting the pencil, and you'll see me do that a lot, I'm flicking the pencil round in my hand, and what I'm doing is I'm turning the tip round to a bit that's less flat. So I'm just going to stick another spot here, and I'm just going to kind of blend this in a little bit more with that pear down there. I just want to soften these up a wee bit because they are a wee bit harsh. And again, just another layer, no pressure, just a tickle. All we need is tickling. Okay, and we can move on now. And we've got some pretty teeny weeny sections here. Yeah, the flicking of the pencil thing's quite it's actually a nervous habit, or maybe it's not a nervous habit, maybe that's the wrong word. It's like, I don't know. I do it when I'm thinking, when I'm sketching as well, you know, if I'm working out what I want to draw and where, or I'm trying to figure out where to put lines, I do lift my pencil, and I kind of do it automatically now. That goes back to one of the exercises I was given for my hand after I had my operation. I used to have to twist things in my hand, and it was to maintain like the motor function because I had a lot of nerve damage. So I don't know whether it's left over from that, and I just use it as a sort of thinking tool. I find something very satisfying about doing the corners when I'm doing backgrounds. I don't know why. Is that strange? It's like getting the corner pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. That's, you know, when you get like a corner section completed. Do people even do jigsaws anymore? I don't even know. My gran used to do a lot of jigsaws when I say when she was younger, I mean when she was in her 80s, pinching the pieces because she's starting to get quite bad arthritis in her hands now, and her eyesight's not as good as it once was. But she now does jigsaw puzzles on an app on her iPad, so, and obviously she can zoom in, you know, she can pinch the screen to zoom in, so she finds that much more agreeable these days. But she used to do a lot of jigsaws. I'm fairly satisfied with this. So I'm going to move on to this middle section here. I'll zoom out a wee bit just so you can see the whole section. There we go, that's a bit better. So back to what I was doing before, I'm going to do this bottom part first, and this is going to be no mean feat, but I am going to do what I can. So again, that soft sort of flicking in the first stage here. So there's our first layer of moss down, and I'm going to grab this olive now. So I've kind of given myself some guidelines there, which is nice. Again, just picking and choosing where I'm trying to get those sort of flicky lines in because of the aforementioned tight spots. Okay, so back to sharpen up now. I'm going to be quite limited as to where I can put these heavier lines in because you really need, you know, you need quite an area to be able to get a good flick in, and we don't have a lot of space here, but pop a few in here and there. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my moss and just fill in some of these whiter areas, you know, just get a little layer on them. And if you keep a light hand, it's not going to obliterate your nice flicky lines that you had in, that you know that you've just put down. There we go, reasonably happy with that. So now we've got back to our pear pencil here. So we start by blending in at the top of where our grass is poking up from behind, or the weeds or whatever they are. And we can blast through this section fairly quickly because all we're doing is building up layers of flat colour. So I'm going to bring this down in here a wee bit as well. Now this is interesting. Can you see this? If I zoom right in, that's as far as I can zoom in. There is another pigment coming through in this pencil, and it's actually left like scratchy lines on my paper. I'll hold that up. Can you see that? It's like a darker shade of green, and that's come directly from the pencil. That is weird. You do get that sometimes with pencils. There's maybe a different, like a bit of pigment slipped in when they've been compact in the cores, and it's given quite an interesting, it's like ghost. Oh, it's still happening as well. Oh dear, this might be a problem. I don't know, there's not really much I can do about it. I've just got to keep going. Maybe if I try and sharpen it off, it might just be a little bit. It's like giving me extra roam grass. Oh no, it's still happening. Oh no, that's better. Okay, crisis averted. I'm wondering if I can maybe take that off there. It is erasing. It's left behind a ghost of a mark. Again, not a huge issue, but that's a bit disappointing. Now I'm taking extra care when I'm going around things like the petals. I'm making sure I get right into those little gaps, and it's just to make sure that the colour's as even as possible. And it's as neat and tidy as possible. I have to say I've been getting on a lot better with my pencils this last couple of weeks, and I think it's because the weather's changed. You know, we're kind of out of that really bitter, damp weather that we get at the start of the year, and my hand seems to fare a lot better. My hand doesn't feel nearly as stiff and sore, because there are days where I don't really want to use pencil because it's not painful, it's just uncomfortable, and I can't really sit for any length of time. And I would say this last fortnight, it's been really nice, and I've not had any crampy issues. I still drop things regularly, but that's just kind of part of my performance these days. But it's not been sore, which is really good. So yes, there are nice things to be said for slightly better weather, even if it's not warm, because it doesn't get that warm in Scotland anyway. I was laughing at the weather reports, because when we get the news headlines, it's for the whole of the UK, and there was a headline about this heat wave that was coming, and when you see things like that, you automatically assume that they're talking about the south of England, because heat wave was one of those. So it turns out that over the Easter weekend in the south of England, there were temperatures of up to like 22 and 25 degrees Celsius, and our highest temperature was yesterday, which was the day I sat outside with my beer, and that was a balmy 16 degrees. But like 16 degrees is t-shirt weather for us. That's, you know, that's a good day. So that always makes me chuckle when I see these, you know, the headlines. I'm like, nah, that's, you automatically just discount it. You know, it doesn't apply to you. But it was really nice to have that sun yesterday. It really was. Our problem as well though is the temperature can be reasonable, you know, it can be quite comfortable, but there's always a cold wind that goes with it, and it's the wind that spoils it for you. You know, although it looks lovely outside, if you get even a slight breeze, it's like, oh yeah, I need to cover my arms up because it's too cold for this. But that's what we always say, we're like triple hard in Scotland. It was really funny when I first moved to Cambridgeshire. I lived down there for a little while, and it is, I mean, the weather is considerably milder. And it was the 5th of November, I always remember it because it was bonfire night when we moved down. So, you know, November, and I was walking about with a t-shirt on and like a body warmer or like a gilet over the top, so my arms were still bare, although I had, you know, my trunk was insulated. And nearly everybody I spoke to, the first thing they asked me are like, are you not freezing? And I'm like, it's 12 degrees, this is like springtime in Scotland, and they're all walking about with like big woolly jumpers and bobbly hats on and stuff, and I'm like, what's wrong with you people? But it's just because I'm used to much colder temperatures and much harsher weather as well. But needless to say, when the summer came round, the summer was absolutely roasting that year. And I expired pretty quickly. I could not cope with the heat at all. There was one day we had a garden thermometer, and the garden thermometer was reading 38 degrees. And it was to the point where even the Jack Russell, who loves to sunbathe, she loves lying in the sun, she wouldn't even go outside into the garden at the back of the house. She was like, nope, too hot. So she lay in the kitchen floor instead. So that's when I knew it really was warm. But I couldn't even walk anywhere in that without complaining quite considerably and sweating a lot. So yeah, although we're really good in cold conditions, they're absolutely useless in the heat. I just want to add a little bit more moss and olive green. See this little bit that I've got hanging down here? I just want to build it up a little bit because I feel it's kind of like, it's a bit out there on its own. So yeah, that was it. My adventures of Cambridgeshire. I used to live just outside Ely. And my main observation was that the mobile phone signal's really good because everything's really flat, and the weather was fabulous. Very, very different to where I was, well, obviously to Scotland in general. Okay, let's move over here now. So let's go back down to the bottom and we can get this last section finished off. Now this is really tight in here, so I think I'm just going to go straight in with the olive in there. There's no point messing about with that little space in there. Okay, back to moss. I really make good decisions here, don't I, when it comes to deciding. I'll do a textured background on this page. This was the wrong page to pick for this. I just thought it would look good though. I thought it would look nice. I wanted this page to feel quite enclosed, you know, like this whole double page environment was quite a sort of cosy little affair, and that's why I opted to do this, because I don't often do backgrounds like this. It's not something that I'm particularly fond of doing. Yeah, I just really wanted to do it on this page. I think I'm quite happy with where my grass is going to now. So back to the olive. I've got a nice little area in here where I can get some flicks in. Flicky flicky. Not to be confused with blendy blendy, obviously. And again, just filling in my gaps at the bottom there. Mama Gem's rumbling about in the kitchen. I don't know what she's doing. She was making salad earlier. I don't know what she's doing now. Hi, Woo! Hello! Woo has no idea at this juncture that she's going to the vets tomorrow. She's actually pretty good with stuff like that. She's quite laid back and chilled out for a Jack Russell anyway. She's very biddable. She's not a yappy, snappy dog at all. In fact, quite the opposite. She's quite an affectionate little thing. So I think she'll be okay at the vets. Taking Pip to the vet is another story. That's like, oh, that's traumatic. Okay, we're reasonably happy with that. So just this little light layer of moss to cover up her white bits. Oh my goodness. You know what I mean. Oh dear. Oh, I've missed a patch in here, look. I was moving some cows with the boys earlier on. They brought them in to vaccinate the cows and calves. One thing and another. It's just sort of a general, you know, administration of prophylactics. and I'd helped them move the cows about. And we have a new member of staff, and he's I've not really spoken to him properly yet. I haven't really gotten to know him, but he got kicked in the knee by one of the cows today. And when I left the boys this morning, all was well, you know, they were getting on, and they'd got all the cows were in, we got them in, and they put them in a pen to start dosing them. And everything was fine, and when I came back out this afternoon he was limping like crazy. So I'd found out what happened, but I'd gone and said to him if he wanted some painkillers. He is going to be living, we have an extra, like a staff dwelling on the farm here, and he's going to be moving into it, but it's needing some renovation. So he's travelling to work just now. So I asked him if he wanted some painkillers, because obviously, you know, we live on the farm, therefore we have. And he said, no, it's absolutely fine. And I was just chatting away to him, and I said, I'm going to have to go in, I've got a video to film, I need to get it done. And he's like, oh yeah, the other guy that works with us was telling me you had a YouTube channel. And the first thing that he asked me, which I don't know why, but everyone asks, the first thing they ask is, do you make any money? And I was just thinking that's really odd, and I kind of like, I understand it, but once you become a YouTuber, it seems like the most preposterous question, because the truth is you're never going to make any money unless you stick with it for years and years and, you know, really put in a lot of work. So I always find that quite odd, but I kind of come to expect it now, but there's a part of me that still finds it quite strange. So it was after he asked that question, his next question was, so what do you do on your channel? And when I said it was an art channel, he's like, oh really? You know, he was really surprised by it. And I was like, well, yeah. He's like, I'll have to watch some of your videos. I was like, okay, you do that. It makes me laugh. It's not really something I talk about an awful lot. Obviously, I talk about it here on the farm with the people that work here, because they know I YouTube anyway. And sometimes they'll ask, how, you know, what am I filming, or what am I drawing or painting? And they're just making conversation. It's you get quite an interesting response from people when you tell them that you make YouTube videos. They're like, do you? As if it's, you know, you've told them that you jump off high buildings for a living. But I always say, you know, it's like it's a hobby that's got out of hand. It's not really here as a money making exercise, because if it is, then I'm failing miserably at it. But yeah, people are always quite surprised. And I don't know whether that's a reaction that other people get. For anybody else that watches these videos that has their own YouTube channel, how do people react to you when you tell them? Do you get the same sort of response? I'm really interested to hear about that. But I think as well, because obviously the arting thing it's quite far removed from both farming and animal bioscience, so I can see why people would be surprised at the content and the genre of my channel. You know, I get that, but I think I'm just so used to it now, like it's so natural to me, it's just like what I do now. Oh, Papa Gem's in. It's really funny now. Papa Gem comes in sometimes and he'll say to me, that cow's got a sore foot, do you think the boys know about it? He's turned into a proper cow watcher now. He's always looking to make sure they're okay, and he's got a pet one as well. He came in one night last week and he told me that he's made a friend. So Papa Gem officially has his very own Agnes. How nice is that? For our newer viewers, Agnes was my pet cow at our old farm. She was very friendly. There is a video on that somewhere. I can't remember which one it is, but there's a video where we go and talk to her and feed her some carrots and things. She was lovely. She's my favourite. I don't have a new Agnes yet, but Papa Gem does. There we are. I'm just going to blend this out a little bit now. Yeah. Okay, I think we might be... Oh, missed a bit. I think we might be done. Right, let's have a zoom out. Oh yeah. Okay, that's looking fairly handy dandy. It seems to match up quite well with this side as well, which is what we were after. And as you can see, I mean, that was a relatively quick and reasonably simple way to do a background, but it's just brought a really nice atmosphere to the picture, and it, as I said before, it kind of makes it feel a bit cozier. So I'm quite pleased with how that's turned out. I might just add in a little bit more here. I'm kind of like eyeballing it while I'm talking here, and I'm going, I'll put a little bit more in there. I'll maybe touch it up a little bit off camera. But anyway, that is it. I hope that this has been helpful for you and it's something that you might consider using or using in part in some of your own colouring pages. And I've really enjoyed just kind of like hanging out and colouring today because I don't really do an awful lot of that. But I'm pleased to see now that this page is starting to come on a little bit. So in the next video that we do, we're probably going to start to tackle a lot of the finer details, and that's always a little bit more fun than watching someone use the same 3 pencils for an hour. So I just want to thank you very much for watching, guys. I really appreciate the support, and we will see you back in the cave on Thursday for another video. Thanks for watching, everyone, and bye for now.